Hello and welcome back to Israel with Aline. Today is Israel's Independence Day. Israel is celebrating 73 years as today is the King's Day of the month of Iyar, according to the Jewish calendar. And in these 73 years, Israel has transformed into a modern country, a vibrant and joyful country. But it didn't start like this. In 1948, when Israel declared its independence, Israel was attacked and suffered its most difficult war of all. And today, the subject of the video is the War of Independence. And more than that, the Israeli Air Force in the War of Independence. So if you are ready, let's get started. Our story begins months before the Declaration of Independence of Israel. It begins on November 29, 1947, when the UN approves the partition plan for Palestine. This plan approves the creation of the State of Israel. And by the way, the person who helped this plan get approved was a Brazilian named Oswaldo Aranha. The moment the plan is approved at the UN, the local Arabs here in the region of Israel begin attacks on the Jewish population. And so the War of Independence actually begins. The War of Independence does not start with the Declaration of Independence, but with the UN vote. And with constant attacks from Arab forces against Jews in the land of Israel, life here becomes even more difficult. And a discussion begins on whether to declare Israel's independence. Looking with the eyes that we have today, we would say, of course, it's a unique opportunity after a 1,900-year exile. But think about how people thought back then at the end of 1947. The Jews didn't have an army, didn't have military training, didn't have weapons, and also couldn't buy weapons since there was an embargo from the great powers of the time against Israel. How could they then fight against some of the largest armies in the Middle East? Because it was known that the moment Israel declared independence, neighboring countries and other Arab countries in the region would attack. And this discussion begins whether or not to declare Israel's independence. And after much discussion and with the help of Ben-Gurion, Israel finally declares its independence on the fifth day of the year of Tashak, or to our calendar, May 14, 1948. But what we knew was going to happen really happens. Israel declares its independence and the Arab countries declare war on Israel. And now, how could this newly emerging country face, at the same time, in addition to the local Arabs, 6 enemy armies that were attacking a country with a population that was largely survivors of the Holocaust? The Holocaust had just ended 3 years earlier. And as we said, practically without military training and without armament. So against all odds, Israel will fight the War of Independence. And because I am telling this story here in Jerusalem today, we know the result. We know that Israel will win the war in a truly unbelievable way. And I now want to start telling you the story of the Israeli Air Force, which is really the most unbelievable story of all. How with 4 planes we can defeat more than 6,000 soldiers. So let's now open the pages of the history book and get to know this fascinating chapter. So knowing that an Arab attack is imminent, how did Israel get military planes and trained pilots? It all started with Lou Lenart, an American Jew who was a pilot in the American Air Forces during World War II. He volunteered and began recruiting other veteran pilots from World War II. And then he managed to make a deal with Czechoslovakia, one of the few countries then willing to sell planes to Israel. And 2 days before the Arab invasion, Lowe and the other volunteers arrive in Czechoslovakia to learn how to fly these new planes that the Czechs were going to sell to Israel. And here begins the most surprising part of the story. The Czechs didn't have their own planes and didn't manufacture planes. What they did, they took remnants of planes, literally scrap from World War II planes, and started to assemble planes based on this scrap. These recycled planes, they had the fuselage of a Messerschmitt 109, which was a plane used by the Nazis. And the propeller and engine were parts of a Heinkel, a bombing plane. And when Lou sees this plane for the first time, he's going to say the following: "This plane is the worst piece of shit I've ever flown." Guys, that's in his words, not mine. And they didn't even know if these planes would actually be able to fly, given the way they were assembled. And on the first flight, really, one of the planes almost fell into the sea with Lou inside. And while they were training, they received a radio announcement that Arab troops had begun to invade Israel and that Israel was losing the war. The Arab troops were conquering more and more territory. Think about the pressure they had on them. Dismiss the desperation to complete the training and get those planes and fly to Israel. And the time came to go to Israel. They take 6 planes, which was all they could get. On the way, 2 of these planes will have accidents. So in total, the Israeli Air Force had 4 planes. And on May 29, 1948, with these 4 planes, the first official mission of the Israeli Air Forces begins. And it was a very important mission for the advancement of the Egyptian troops who were heading towards Tel Aviv, which was the largest Jewish city at the time. If they conquered Tel Aviv, it would be the end of the State of Israel, which hadn't even started yet. The 4 Israeli pilots, Lou Lenart, Modi Alon, Ezer Weizman, and Eddie Cohen, fought against more than 6,000 Egyptian soldiers. It's going to be an extremely chaotic battle, and unfortunately, Eddie Cohen's plane is going to be shot down. And they managed to only drop 1 bomb behind enemy lines. But will that be enough to leave the Egyptians in shock? They start to wonder, does Israel have an air force? And imagine them seeing German planes with the Star of David painted on each wing. And the Egyptian troops become disoriented, and then Israel also launches a ground attack. Egyptian accounts tell that they believe that Israel then had hundreds of planes on the way. They never imagined that the entire Air Force was made up of 4 planes. And this was the beginning of the victory over Egypt, which will finally be defeated in October 1948 with Operation Yoav. The War of Israel's independence was like a battle of David and Goliath. The state of Israel, so small, newly emerged and already facing some of the largest armies of the time. But with creativity, with perseverance, and with dream and a bit of madness from people like Dilu and the other pilots, Israel manages to win the war and reaffirm its independence. We are here today to celebrate the independence of the State of Israel, but we always have to remember also the marks that war leaves, in this case, the War of Independence. Here at the Gate of Zion, we see hundreds of bullet holes that will never be erased. After 73 years, Israel has transformed into a modern, vibrant, safe country, and that's why we have so many reasons to celebrate. And we also have a very important reason to thank all the soldiers who fought for Israel and who continue to protect the state to this day. A happy Independence Day to everyone. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more videos here directly from Israel, and we'll see you next time.